Morning came soft and steady. The light at my window was gentle. I ate toast and drank tea. I tied my hair low and put on my blue dress. I touched the brooch the mother had promised to pin for me. I took my handbag and let the small place where the thread used to be remind me that even mended things can be honest. I reached their door early. I like to arrive before the day starts rushing. Lena opened with a smile that reached her eyes. "Come in," she said. "We were waiting for you." Her voice was clear like water in a glass. I stepped inside. The house was calm. The air smelled faintly of flowers and tea. The mother stood near the window with a small velvet box. "For you," she said. She opened it and lifted out the brooch with blue stones. She pinned it to my dress with careful fingers. "This was my mother's," she whispered. "I would like it to be with you today." I put my hand over hers for a second. "Thank you," I said. "I will carry her with me." The father came from the hallway with his jacket over his arm. He looked at me and nodded. "You look ready," he said. He was not describing only clothes. He was describing my steady. I nodded back. "I am." We drank tea at the table without rushing. The mother poured slowly. Lena checked the time twice and then stopped checking. Daniel arrived and he stood at the doorway for a breath as if memorizing the picture. His mother, his wife, her parents, one room, one table, no lines on the floor. "It is time," the father said softly. He called for a car. He did not ask me to take the bus. He did not tell me he would provide a driver. He simply said, "We will go together." I put my bag over my shoulder. We walked to the door as a group, not in pairs, not in lines. Side by side, in the car, the city passed like a quiet film. Lena held her bouquet in her lap. It was fresh and simple. The mother fixed a stray hair near Lena's ear and then smiled at herself for fussing. The father looked out the window and cleared his throat once. Daniel looked at me in the mirror and I nodded. He smiled. We did not need many words. We reached the church. It was old and warm. Wooden pews lined the room like rows of listening people. Sunlight fell across the floor in long, calm bars. The air felt like a hand on a shoulder. The hush was not strict. It was kind. We were early. Lena went to a small room at the front to wait. I went with her. So did her mother. The three of us stood a moment without speaking. Then I said, "Breathe." She breathed in and out slowly. Her mother handed her a small tissue. "You will be fine," she said. It did not sound like a command. It sounded like a truth. The officiant knocked on the door and peeped in. "Ready?" he asked. Lena nodded. "Almost," she said. "One more breath." We all took one, then two. Then three. That was enough. The first notes of music drifted in like a kind wind. The doors opened. People stood. A small child in a white dress walked ahead with careful steps, dropping petals like soft coins. Lena's father offered his arm. She took it. They walked slowly, not for show, but because the moment asked for a slower pace. Daniel stood at the front. His hands were steady. He looked at Lena and then he looked at me for a second. It was the same look I had seen on the day he walked into school by himself. It was the same look on the day he told me he had found work. It was the same look he gave me when he first said Lena's name like a new word. I nodded. He smiled, small and sure. The vows were simple. They spoke clearly. They did not rush. When a baby cried somewhere in the middle, they paused and smiled. The room smiled with them. The officiant looked down at his book and blinked as if washing his eyes. Life was here, that was good. When it was time to sign the registry, Lena turned and lifted her chin toward me. It was our small signal. I stood and went to the table on the side. The mother stood on her other side. We formed a small, steady row. The pen moved across paper. The sound of it was neat and careful. The brooch on my dress caught the light and glowed like a little pond. Names went down in ink. The room held its breath and then let it out. We walked out of the church after the final blessing. The door opened to the street. The light felt brighter. People cheered softly. No one shouted. It was not that kind of day. Bubbles floated in the air. The children chased them. An older aunt shuffled her feet on the steps. The father offered his arm without making a show. She took it and smiled with relief. The mother hugged a cousin she had not hugged in years. Some hugs are mending. They sew what words cannot. Photos were taken near a tree that had watched many weddings. We stood in small groups. We stood all together. Lena's father stood next to me and whispered, "We did it." I whispered back, "We are doing it." He nodded as if he could feel both truths at once. The reception hall was simple and bright. White cloths covered the tables. The flowers did their quiet work. The band tuned their instruments without making a fuss. Children slid on the floor in new shoes they did not yet know how to stop. The room felt like a table before a meal, ready, expectant, warm. The mother led me to the head table. "Please sit beside Daniel," she said, not in the voice she uses for instructions, but in the voice she uses for invitations. I placed my handbag on the chair and sat. Lena sat on Daniel's other side. Her mother sat next to me. The father took his place near her. There were no empty chairs between us. We ate the first course. Soup. It was clear and hot and flavored with patience. The second course was rice and chicken with a skin that tasted like stories told well. The third course was vegetables that still had their own names. No one tried to make them into something else. We passed plates and napkins and small jokes. We passed ourselves without fear. The speeches began. The band leader tapped the microphone and then stepped back as if he knew this was not his part. The father stood. He held the microphone like a person holding a fragile cup. He looked at Lena, then at Daniel, then at me. He said, "I used to think dignity was about standing tall and never bending. I am learning it is also about knowing when to sit and listen." His voice shook, but he let it. He turned to me. "Thank you for sitting with us. Thank you for teaching me to listen." He raised his glass. We raised ours. It was not loud. It did not need to be. The mother stood next. She looked at Lena and smiled in a way I had not seen before, soft, open, proud, without edges. She said, "We planned this day with lists and pens and pictures. But the best parts were not on any list. They were in the moments we made room. We are learning." She looked at me and nodded, a small bow of respect. "Thank you for staying," she said. Her voice did not ask for forgiveness. It gave it. I did not plan to speak long. I am not a person who loves microphones, but when they offered, I stood. I held the microphone the way I hold a cup. I looked at the room and saw faces I knew and faces I was still learning. I said, "I am not a woman of many things. I have a small home, I have a small wardrobe. I have a small tin box with papers that mean much to me. Today my heart is wide." I looked at Daniel. "My son," I said, "you taught me patience. You taught me to wait for rice to steam, for news to arrive, for the right moment to speak. You taught me that strength can be quiet." I looked at Lena. "You are the person he chose. I choose you too every day we have breath." I turned to the mother and father. "I acted small when I first came to you. I wanted to test hearts. I am sorry for that. It was not necessary. You laugh sometimes. It stung. I have laughed in ignorance too. We are here now. We are learning together." I took a breath. I said, in my kitchen, when a pot boils over, I do not shout at the pot. I turn the heat down, I move it to another burner. I make room for it to settle. In this family, when feelings boil, let us turn the heat down. Let us move each other to safe places. Let us make room. The room exhaled, people smiled. A child clapped once and then stopped because she thought she was the only one, and then others clapped and she clapped again. The sound did not fill the hall like thunder. It filled it like steady rain on a roof. Enough to be heard, enough to be felt. After the speeches, the music began. The first song was slow. It was the kind of song that respects people who do not dance often. Daniel stood and held out his hand. "Dance with me, Ma," he said. I laughed, a little shy. "I am not graceful," I said. He smiled. "You always say that, and then you are." We walked to the floor. We moved slowly. I let my head rest near his shoulder without touching it. I felt the warm press of his palm and remembered his small hands in the sink with soapy water and clattering plates. "Thank you," he said, quiet. "For what?" I asked. "For trusting me," he said. I smiled. "I always have," I said. We turned in a small circle, far from the edges, right in the middle of the room. The band played a little louder for the next song. People joined us. The father surprised us all by swaying with the mother. He did not pretend to be good at it. He just moved. She laughed softly and placed her hand on his shoulder in a way that said, "We are fine." Later, I stood near the dessert table. Small cakes and fruit sat like bright buttons. The cousin who had once said, "Vintage is brave," came to me with a plate. She looked shy in a way I had not seen. "Can I bring you something?" she asked. "I am going to the table." I said, "I will come with you." We walked together. She said, "You were kind to me when I did not deserve it." I said, "We are all learning." She nodded, eyes wet. "We are." At one point, I felt a light touch on my arm. It was the neighbor from their building, the one who had smiled in the elevator and waved at the guard. She said, "I like your brooch." I smiled. "It is my daughter's grandmother," I said. "On my dress." She grinned. "Then you are wearing a story," she said. "Yes," I said. "I am." The night moved in its slow, good way. We ate, we talked, we rested, we laughed without edges. Lena came to sit beside me for a moment between dances. She leaned her head on my shoulder like a child coming to rest. "I am happy," she said. "I can feel it." I kissed the top of her head. "Keep feeling it," I said. "It teaches the room how to breathe." As the evening thinned, the band packed gently. The hall grew quieter. People wrapped shawls around their shoulders and tucked shoes back into boxes. The father stood and stretched his back with a small groan he tried to hide. The mother collected small gifts from the table as if they were eggs, and she did not want to drop any. We walked outside. The air was soft. A light mist had begun, not rain, just a kind of blessing. A car pulled up. "We will take you home," the father said, not as a favor, but as a habit he was choosing. I nodded. "Thank you." In the car, Lena leaned forward from the back seat and held my shoulder. "Stay with us tomorrow night," she said. "We have no plans. We can make soup." The mother turned and added, "The guest room is ready." I smiled. "Yes," I said, "I will come." They walked me to my door. The hallway in my building smelled like old paint and something sweet from a neighbor's pot. The father looked at my step that used to creak. It did not creak, he had fixed it. He smiled to himself in a quiet, proud way. The mother touched my arm and said, "Sleep well." Lena kissed my cheek and said, "See you tomorrow." Daniel said, "I will call you in the morning." They waited until I unlocked the door and stepped inside. Then they left in the same careful, kind way they had arrived. I put my handbag on the table. I took off my shoes and lined them neatly by the stool. I unpinned the brooch and placed it in my palm for a moment, feeling its small weight. I set it in a teacup beside my bed so I would not lose it. I took my tin box from the shelf and opened it. I added a thin ribbon from a wedding favor, blue and white. I added a folded napkin with a small stain of soup, the good kind. I added a place card with my name written in Lena's careful hand. I closed the tin gently. I sat on the edge of my bed and thought of the day. The church like a wooden heart, the vows like slow stones in water, the pen scratching on paper with my name beside my son's, the small cookies from the mother's tin, the speech that did not tremble as much as I feared, the dance that felt like I was standing in a quiet river, the laughter without edges. I thought of the first night when I smiled instead of crying and closed the door softly. I thought of how far we had come, not by force, not by demand. By small steps, by quiet truth, by making room, by learning to turn down the heat when the pot tried to boil, I slept well. In the morning, I woke before the alarm. The sky was pale, the city hummed. I made tea and stood by the window. I ran my finger along the place on my bag where the loose thread had been and now was not. It made me smile, mended, not hidden, better. After breakfast, I washed the cups and set them to dry. I wrote a small list on a scrap of paper. Ginger, bread, spinach, apples. I folded it and placed it in my bag. It was Wednesday. We did not say it out loud yet, but we were beginning a new habit. We were beginning the kind of weeks that have soup in them. Before I left for the market, the phone rang. It was the mother. "Good morning," she said. Her voice sounded like someone who had slept deep and woke with a clear head. "I am thinking of making a simple cake tonight. It may dip in the middle," I laughed. "Then it will hold the icing." She laughed too. "Yes," she said, "it will hold." I picked up my bag and my keys. I touched the teacup with the brooch inside. I touched the tin box. I touched the door. I stepped out into the day. The hallway felt like a friend. The stairs did not creak. The street smelled like bread. The sky was ready to hold our plans. We had stood at one table. We had passed bread. We had listened and spoken and let silence work when words would have broken. We had begun to build the ordinary days that hold love best. There would be more to tell: market mornings, soup nights, a visit to my old school, a day at the grave, a small leak, a small key. But those belong to the next part. For now I carry this. I acted small when I first met them and they laughed. On the wedding day, no one acted. We arrived as ourselves. We placed our hearts at the center. We sat at one table. We laughed without edges. It was not loud. It did not need to be. It was steady. It was warm. It was enough.